What's going on, guys? Bart here with Tully Television, and today we're going to be getting into, just want to center that a little bit better so you can see this moneymaker. Today we're going to be getting into The Last of Us Episode 8, entitled When We Are in Need. But before we do, I want to thank all of you for stopping by, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that beautiful stuff. If I have yet to earn that subscription, I hope that today is the day. And if so, you hit that red subscribe bar down below. But let's get into it. The Last of Us Episode 8, When We Are in Need. Created again for television by Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin. Again, the cast is Pedro Pascal as Joel, Bella Ramsey as Ellie, Scott Shepherd as David, Troy Baker as James, a.k.a. Joel in the game's voice actor, which I thought was a pretty nifty little Easter egg, so to speak, here. So, great performance, by the way, of him in this episode. Ari Ramba as Joyce, and Sonia Maria Chirilla, 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 like Godzilla maybe, but Chirilla, don't mean to joke, I guess, on that. I'm not meaning to be disrespectful, as the character Hannah. Now, if you remember where we left off, the episode prior, we have Joel injured. We have Ellie trying to figure out what to do, what the next step is. They're only down to like one little piece of jerky or something, and Joel is still trying to recover and unconscious from the knife wound that he had, which I still don't understand why he even took that out of his body like that. But which prompts Ellie to go finally hunting, and she's able to hunt a deer and take him out. But before we get into what happens next, we get into David and I just want to make sure I get the names right. David and James. There's this like Silver Lake. We wound up finding out that it's a ski resort that was there before the full downfall of everything. David is a religious-inspired leader for this community, and it's getting really difficult to maintain this community and his hold on them because it's becoming more and more bleak there. David is trying to still have faith in him, but people are losing it. We see this one scene of Hannah, young actress, appears to be preteen to mid-teen age. We find out that the man that Joel killed in the episode prior was her father, and she asked if her father could be buried. And we see David kind of pausing there for a second and looking, and he was like, well, the ground is too cold to dig, so we'd have to wait until the spring to bury your father. And her and the mother seemed very distraught over that for obvious reasons. And then we see David talking to James here, right? And they need to go look for food. And James had said that a couple of guys had seen deer out in the woods somewhere the other day. We want to try to go looking for this. They decide to look for look for food. Sorry, I I lost my concentration there for a second. And so this is when we pick up with them finding the deer that Ellie shot, and Ellie comes and basically forces them to put their guns down. She's not giving them her name. She's being very standoffish. And she makes a deal of that because she's told they have a community with large people, she makes a deal with them by saying, like, I'll give you half the deer if you bring back some antibiotics for me. And so as David and her are waiting in some sort of little burnt out husk of a shelter that was like a small house or whatever, waiting for James to come back, he tells her what he's a lot about him. He was a teacher. He decided to take God into consideration at the end of the world. Ellie seems to more and more lose her wall of mistrust and begins to feel like maybe he does know what he's talking about, until he reveals that he always felt like things were meant to be, because one of his men were killed the other day by a crazy man and a little girl. And here's the little girl. And she realized, this was the moment she realized she just effed up. And James has the medicine. He's able to get it from her. She's able to get it from him, and takes off with the rifle and the medicine and is able to inject Joel with the antibiotics. James and David go back home with the deer. He tells everyone that they found the person that killed one of their men from the last episode, and he says that we're going to go hunting for them tomorrow, because he knows that Ellie's not going to be able to carry a sick man around anyway, so there's really no rush. They can go get them the next day. Another clue that we begin to see what is happening with this community is, at one point, one of the men give Hannah's mother some meat to cook, and she's like, "What is this?" And he's like, "Venison." And it's like, if you knew what it was, there would be no reason for you to ask what it was. And they just bought the deer in like 10 minutes prior. I'm not a hunter like that, okay? Or anything. I'm not experienced with any of that stuff. Not saying I'm unwilling to go. I'm just inexperienced. But I know enough that it takes longer than 10 minutes from the time that you find the deer, bring it home, and hang it upside down so you can drain it. I know that takes more than 10 minutes, at least. I think, I would imagine that you'd need to have the deer hanging there, draining, I would say maybe about an hour, maybe even more, but definitely not 10 minutes. I know that. But now we're starting to see, like, there's a lack of food, but now all of a sudden they find this deer and the meat's all ready, like, to go. And so anyway, they go hunting for Ellie. She able to dodge him for a little bit the next day, but she finally gets captured, and David tries so hard to tempt her into joining him. You can see he's starting to become a little creepy with her, because at one point he's trying to talk to her, and as he's like thinking that he's getting one over on her, and he starts like caressing her hand and stuff, like real, like a creep, you know what I mean? And she winds up breaking his finger. And one of the coolest lines out of this was, because she refused to give her name, she's like, "Tell him my name is Ellie, the girl that broke your finger, your effing finger." And now it's really on because she's seen Earling there, that they're eating people. This is the big reveal, that they're eating people. They're eating their fellow man. They are cannibals, a clan of cannibals, all right? And Ellie is really realizing now that she's going to have to get the hell out of there. And finally, when they say that she's not going to bend the knee, so to speak, they wind up trying to, James and David tried to then prep her for dinner, and she was able to get her hands. She first initially was able to get them to be distracted because she says, "I'm infected and now you're infected," because at one point she bit him. He doesn't believe she's infected, which, again, out of everything the last 20 years of this apocalypse has shown you that, yeah, no one survives this, so you would think it was a trick. But in this distraction, she was able to get James in the neck with a cleaver, and then it just was a showdown between her and David. In the meantime, as David and Ellie are fighting, a group of men that were sent to go find Joel, Joel was able to recover with the antibiotics and start fighting some of these men off. He found out where they were, where Ellie was, and took care of the men that were there to take care of him. And he made his way to then the Silver Lake resort. At one point when he made his way there, he entered this shed and he's seen a deer there. And as he's going around the corner, we see 3 bodies hanging from the ceiling of this shed, this cabin, this barn, or what have you. And it's, you know, what people are eating. It's what they're eating, these bodies, from these bodies. And Joel's face is just like, like, like once you realize what's going on here, like, oh man, even if they're not eating them, they're why, you know what I mean? You're really starting to realize how much trouble him and Elle are really in at this point. But finally, Elle and David face off, and Elle is really holding her own against him. But again, she's only 14, petite girl compared to a grown man. But at one point, David's on top of her, and the whole cabin is on fire now. And she's realizing what he's about to do. He's about to teach her a lesson in subservience. He's getting ready to grape her. Yeah, that's right, grape. He's ready to do that essay to her. And there's a flip, a switch that flipped in her head. And she was able to get him off of her and beat his brains in with a pipe. And they don't actually show, you know, the pipe connecting or anything. They just show, it's one of the better sequences of the series so far, where she's on top of him and she's just wailing and wailing and wailing. Each descending of her hand just seems to be more rage-filled and hate-filled, and at the end of that scene, she's just covered with David's blood, and she's like panting, and just like an animal that just survived the great fight. Obviously, that's what happened. She survived the massive fight, all that anger, emotion, that what you had to do, and she's just sitting there, even more traumatized than what she's already been traumatized. And as she walks out, kind of in that drunken stupor of emotion, that ether of emotion. We see Joel grab her from behind, and she's getting ready to go nuts again, and she sees him, and she embraces him, and he calls her, he says, "It's okay, baby girl, it's okay." Finally, consolidating their love for each other, comforting her as if she was his own daughter, and that happened to his own daughter, and those actions, what he would take with his own daughter, he took with Ellie. And she calms down. He doesn't even ask her what happened. They just go. And that's where the episode ends. Ellie, I have to say this episode has really been one of the best ones so far. I thought that the pacing of this, the slow reveal, even though you start having an idea. If you are into zombie movies and stuff, you always know that you're going to run into a cannibal group somewhere along the line. It reminded me of Terminus in The Walking Dead. But, yeah, I thought this was a great episode. I'm going to rate this episode a 9 out of 10. That's how much I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, the pacing was great. I thought that, again, the way it was shot, the way it was directed, the way, the subtleties throughout the episode of that slow reveal that David is not who he is, and that Ellie at the end has to fight her way through hell, literally, so to speak, against David, aka a preacher, and through the fire of the building that they were in. Yeah, we only got one more episode after this, so we're only going to get the multiverse of Pedro Pascal for 2 weeks, being that The Mandalorian and this is out in the same week for 2 weeks in a row. But, yeah, go check this out. I think you'll like it. And until next time, peace, Snookums.